Welcome to Storytime, brought to you by the OWSCyCon2019, the online book event of the year.
Garrett flinched as he reached the meeting point, flailing an arm out to catch a fluttering projectile. He gave Nara a questioning look as he shook the wadded mess open, unfolding a black cloth face mask. "Put that on," she ordered him. He blinked. "Why?" "Because, as an upper, I don't know how recognizable you are, and since you will not tell me your family name, you will conceal your features," she declared. "You will not put me under any further unnecessary risk." "The hood isn't enough?" he asked as he tied the article over his face. "No." The fear on the Galavantier thug's face troubled her, the kid's identity nagging at the back of her mind. She hoped to be rid of him quickly and drain him of any resource she could while the contract lasted. "I don't carry dead weight, so while you are down here, you will learn to use this," Nara ordered, handing over a small pistol. "That one is designed for the inept, so you should have no trouble operating it. You will use this piece only, and you will never aim it at me." Garrett took offense at her demeaning attitude, despite a level of accuracy to the assumptions. His book knowledge of small arms function was somewhat advanced, thanks to Baron's insistence on simulation training. His real-world experience, however, was limited to lecture and demonstration of the security officer's personal collection, never having fired them himself. Much to Baron's discomfort, he did not possess a weapon of his own, having nowhere to conceal it in upper and no permanent base camp in under. "I've handled is worlds different from used, and even then your experience is questionable. If you haven't evaluated the weight of someone else's life in your conscience, you've never handled a gun." You have a point." He frowned at her grim words. He gingerly slipped the armament into his pocket, hastily changing the uncomfortable subject. "So, where are we headed?" "Market," she declared, heading off in the opposite direction. "What are we getting there?" He was growing slightly irritated conversing with her back. "As I said before, my armor needs an upgrade," she replied. "And I assume you have never been a hawk before, so you will need personal surveillance equipment." "Ah, I see." He tried to maintain the dialogue, but the conversation stagnated as he struggled to keep up with Nara's broad stride. He was relieved when the marketplace made itself known, the murmuring commotion of the traders a welcome contrast to the dreary streets. He took in a hearty breath of air as the amalgamation of scents wafted toward them. Spicy, smoky odors of the food vendors competing with the heady exhaust of caravan vehicles and the distinctive perfume of organic life. The market grounds were teeming with people from all manner of profession and species. Hawkers shouted their specials from all directions, drowning out the raucous buyers zealously haggling over purchases. Creatures of every identifiable animal genus, and some not so identifiable, cried in distress from their constrictive cages. Brightly colored digital displays projected looping videos of vendor offerings, flickering obnoxiously to distract the milling consumers. Items from weapons to priceless artifacts and religious icons could be found here, and intergalactic visitors could find the comforts of home only a stall away. Nara merged into the bustle, her imposing stature parting the sea of indifferent bodies. Garrett contained his curiosity as he ducked into the gap she formed, prying his eyes away from statues and jewelry. She stopped in front of a modest weapons kiosk, her attention drawn to an array of small circular badges radiating a faint electronic glow of every color in the visible spectrum. She delicately brushed her hand over the pieces, selecting a bright blue device for further inspection. She raised the object to the meager spotlight hovering above the stand and scrutinized the indentations, feeling the serial number engraved on the back. She then glanced expectantly at the bored merchant, who gave her an approving nod. Garrett watched in fascination as Nara rolled up her sleeve, tracing his eyes over the unusual characteristics of her exposed forearm. A thick chitinous plating spanned the front of her arm, emerging from the soft flesh like a natural vambrace. The curious armor was a deeper hue in comparison to her skin, and emblazoned with an even more remarkable display of body art. A venomous serpent coiled around her forearm, the pattern of ornate scales seamlessly blending the contrasting textures. The soft flesh was inked with a deep red that matched the shade of the armor, transitioning into glimmering furrows of a rosy golden metal that glinted in the tenuous lighting of the market. The creature's head rested on her wrist, its malicious expression emanating from two cerulean blue gems set into the eye sockets. Ignoring his ogling, Nara pressed a sequence of buttons on the badge. The device snapped to her arm, forming a thin bracelet around her wrist, the blue lights intensifying as it calibrated. Shining metallic plates burst from the adornment, hungrily consuming her forearm with its silvery carapace. She flicked a nail over the material, humming a noise of approval. The merchants stepped in and drew a dagger from their belt, offering the handle to her for examination. Nara accepted the blade, flexing the point against the countertop to test its durability. Before Garrett could question the exchange, she rammed the dagger into her arm, the edge screeching in protest with a burst of sparks. The silver barrier deflected the blow, sending the blade darting off its sleek surface, leaving behind a superficial scratch marring the texture. The metal reacted with the damage, the gashed area shifting into a viscous liquid. The healing material flowed over the wound, restoring the surface of the armor. With the repairs completed, the device hardened to its protective state. How much? She addressed the vendor, satisfied with the results of her test. 20, the merchant replied. Would you take 15? She haggled, tilting her head inquisitively. Garrett watched the conversation, picking out the few nuances he understood of dark trade, the common language of the Undercity. He knew enough to conduct his own business, but sometimes he was lucky enough to find someone who was willing to speak high trade, the accepted official dialect of Arcadia. Dark trade was developed to keep secrets from the upworlders, used as a tactic against the rich for personal gain, such as conning additional fees in a transaction, or intentionally misinterpreting the rules to a gambling match. The evasive verbal cues and elaborate code of gestures took advantage of a victim's sense of chronic discomfort in foreign situations. Not for the Nexus series, I'm afraid. The vendor brought his hand to his chin. But I can part with it for 18.5. Acceptable. Nara nodded in approval, waving Garrett back to reality. Time for you to make good on your part. Give the merchant 18.5. 100? Garrett furrowed his eyebrows. 1,000, she corrected. The exorbitant cost jabbed at Garrett's ears, causing a slight whimper to eject from his throat. He promptly composed himself after meeting Nara's expectant glare and produced a thumb-sized tab of translucent plastic from his pocket. He slid the currency slice into his netcom, making a withdrawal from his account before handing it to the vendor, who graciously accepted the offering. A pleasure doing business with you, the merchant purred, stashing the slice up their sleeve with the wave of their fingers. Nara politely bowed her head and walked away with her prize, leaving a simmering Garrett trailing behind. You know, I could easily have bought a condo down here for that much, he remarked. I already have several, but thanks for the offer. Nara regarded him with a smirk. You said you were willing to fund this expedition. You could have at least given me some forewarning, Garrett grumbled. You never asked about my prices, and I'm afraid that it is quite a hefty mistake on your part, she added flatly. You have the misfortune of conducting business with one of the highest profile mercenaries in the underground. Congratulations. Fantastic. Do you have any idea what I actually do for a living? Nara challenged. And how much it costs? Wait a minute. You're being completely sincere, aren't you? Garrett looked up in disbelief. You're not just trying to con more money off me. Consider this a down payment. Nara turned around, bearing down on him with unsympathetic eyes. And I assure you, this is a negligible fee compared to what my time is worth in the common market. I see. A disapproving frown distorted his face. So, what now, Captain High Profile? Lunch, Nara stated as she sharply turned, heading into the food district. Alluring, savory scents wafted through the air, circulating in harmonious blends of the myriad cuisines represented along the alley of makeshift grills. Chefs sequentially flipped rows of sizzling meats, while their machine-like crews tended to cauldrons of bubbling broth simmering over open flames. Mounds of vividly colored spices provided a fragrant mask over the scent of the more pungent produce imported from neighboring solar systems. Lively drones flowed through the air, poking at the tanks of live seafood as they performed their shopping duties for their masters. Nara approached a stall specializing in soups and stews, browsing through the pictorial menus, flicking on a small electronic display. After placing an order, she claimed an empty space on a makeshift standing table, hastily constructed from precariously stacked cargo crates. Moments later, a service drone flitted over to them, brandishing a tray with 2 steaming plastic bowls. The savory, earthy aroma flooded through Garrett's senses as he took his share, his appetite awakened by the inviting contents. He delicately plucked through the arrangement of roots and vegetables, revealing curly yellow strands bathed in a clear, blood-red broth. Pieces of salt-cured proteins floated to the surface, dotted with the anisey scent of an odd blue herb. You know, for someone who boasts about an incredible income, Garrett remarked, I find it odd that you would be eating common street food. Street food is fucking delicious. Don't you dare insult it, she countered, slurping up a noodle. Now shut up and eat, highborn.
This story time was read by Phoebe Darqueling and brought to you in conjunction with the OWSCyCon 2019. OWSCyCon runs from May 17th through May 19th. You can find us at OWSCyCon.OurRightSide.com. Again, OWSCyCon.OurRightSide.com. We have events happening across all genres. If you are a reader, you cannot afford to miss this event. You never know. You may just find your next best read.